Prime Minister Narendra Modi will address the nation at 8 p.m. tonight. This comes a day after he held an exhaustive marathon meeting with chief ministers across states. And this also comes just a few days before the lockdown date of the 17th May, when the lockdown is supposed to end, is approaching. So now Moushumi Gupta, we know, has been tracking, the government has been tracking the PMO and has been tracking all that the PM has said in the past couple of months, ever since COVID-19 struck us. Moushumi, let's first talk about what happened in yesterday's meeting, and then we'll go on to talk about what to expect from the PM's speech this evening. Also, do send in your questions for this live episode of Government Matters, because Moushumi would be happy to answer them. So yesterday's meeting, 6 hours, over 6 hours?
Yeah, I think it was over 6 hours. It started at 3. And the highlight of yesterday's meeting, Ruhi, was the Prime Minister indicated to the state chief ministers that more relaxation will be given post May 17 when the fourth phase of the lockdown ends. Economic activity has already picked up, but he said that more economic activities would gather more steam post May 17, indicating that more areas would be opened up.
Right.
Also, Ruhi, the government had on Sunday allowed passenger train services to resume. So, I mean, chances are that after May 17, more public transport would be allowed to operate. But Prime Minister also made it very clear that even while allowing all these economic activities, the government can't fritter away, the state governments can't fritter away the benefits accrued from the lockdown.
Right.
So protocols need to be followed, protocols of social distancing needs to be followed. States need to be very, very careful to ensure that the disease transmission is, limited.
Right. But what did the chief ministers want? Is there any one coherent thought that ran through all of them?
The chief ministers had very divergent views. There were several chief ministers, in fact, who wanted the lockdown to be extended beyond May 17. Punjab Chief Minister Amrinder Singh, he advised caution to the Prime Minister and said that if the lockdown has to be lifted, the government has to be very, very careful.
Right.
But he said that he wanted the lockdown to be extended with the proper framework to revive economic activities, and also a fiscal package from the centre. He wanted a fiscal package from the centre. Apart from Punjab, Maharashtra Chief Minister Uddhav Thackeray, Bihar Chief Minister Nitish Kumar also wanted the lockdown to be extended. But then there were many states, in fact, BJP-led Assam government also wanted the extension to be lockdown to be extended by another 2 weeks. But then again, on the other side, there were states which wanted the complete lifting of the lockdown.
Right.
So, the states are not on the same page on this.
Right. But most states did say that they should be given the powers to decide what zones can be red zones, red zones, orange zones, and green zones.
Yeah. I mean, the states have raised this issue that they should be given the discretion to decide on the classification of containment zones. In fact, West Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee went on to accuse the centre of playing politics with the state and taking unilateral decision. This was one thing that even the Punjab Chief Minister said, that states, because they are working in the field, they are in a better position to know the areas which should be put under containment zone. Because the moment you designate a zone as a containment zone, it brings everything in that area to a standstill.
Right.
All kind of economic activity, movement of public living in that area is also curtailed.
Right. Well, I'll start taking a few viewer questions. I'll begin with questions that we've got on Twitter. What new task can we expect tonight from the PM to show solidarity to our essential service workers? This is from Satyaki Bedya. Moushumi, any new task? There wasn't one the last time, though.
I think the only task that the PM can talk about is that citizens should
be cautious.
Be cautious and adhere to the social distancing norms wherever they are. I mean, even if they go to their offices, go to their workplaces, they should follow the social distancing norms. They should wear masks at all times. That's the only task that, I mean, he should
ideally talk about. Nilesh Puri says, will there be talk about the labor class locked in foreign countries? So we did do a detailed government matters on this on on immigration, on repatriation of Indians stuck abroad. But PM is unlikely to talk about it.
See, PM is likely, the PM could touch on the migrant workers issue.
Domestic issue.
Yeah,
right.
yeah, but then that is domestically, because that has become a huge concern, not only for the center, but also the state governments. Despite the fact that the government allowed special trains to transport the migrant workers back home, they allowed, before that they allowed bus services, but even now migrant workers are walking.
Right, for hundreds of kilometers.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not giving a very good, it's not reflecting very well on the government. So, and also the livelihood issues of the migrant workers, because many states have been raising this issue with the center in their meetings with the cabinet secretary, and yesterday also many of the states raised this issue that it's a big challenge for the states to provide livelihood to the lakhs and lakhs of migrant workers who are returning home, and they wanted the center to support, to provide some kind of aid to the states to deal with the issue.
Right. Tarush, this is a YouTube viewer. Will the PM take a risk of opening the economy and risking lives, or the risk is for the CMs to take? So, this has been a constant debate now. How much can the center bulldoze its way through, or sort of handhold states, or now is it going to be largely up to states to decide what they want to do?
Going by what the Prime Minister told the Chief Ministers last night, Ruhi, it looks like that the center is going to take a step back as far as allowing states to decide, because yesterday the Prime Minister told the Chief Ministers to submit to the center by May 15 the roadmap that states want vis-a-vis resuming economic operations in the respective states. So, and also our government sources tell us that the center is likely to give more freedom, allow states to decide on the kind of industry, the kind of economic activities they want to, they want to start in their respective states. Also, the center is likely to allow states to decide on the containment zone, like I told you earlier, because that's one of the things that the states have been asking for. So the center is likely to agree to that also.
Right. Satadal Sen Gupta, what would be the goal with regards to movement of migrant labourers? There seems to be no coherent thought on whether to encourage labourers to stay put or enable them to travel to their villages. This is actually a good point. What is it that the government is pushing for, whether it's the centre or whether it's the state government? Are they calling the migrants back because some states don't seem to want the migrants back? Or are they asking the migrants to just stay put where they are?
On this whole issue of migrant labours, Ruhi, migrant workers, both the center and the state seems to be in a bind, because it was the states were the one who demanded that the migrant workers should be sent home, and the center allowed, because migrant workers were returning on foot. They were walking thousands and thousands of kilometers to reach the villages, and it was because of the demand of the states that the center first allowed bus services, and then they allowed special trains to carry them back home. But now with this huge influx of migrant workers, the states are saying that it's a very big challenge for them, not only to provide quarantine facilities to test them, but also to ensure livelihood to the migrant workers, because most of these workers are returning home because they lost their job after the lockdown was enforced on March 25th. So it's a very big,
it's a complex issue.
And they're caught between the devil and the deep sea. You can't send the migrant back, and the states from where the migrant workers are returning, it's a big, they are also going to take a big hit, because the industry, their economic activities is going to suffer. The migrant workers provided a very, they were very crucial cog in that wheel.
Right. There is another viewer question. This is from a handle called the Sandster. What will be the effect of economic slowdown on job creation and placement of future students? So jobs has become a major concern for this government. What is the thinking within the government on the issue?
the government will be like several ministers in the government have told us, and also the empowered groups constituted by the government has given a recommendation to the Prime Minister that there needs to be an economic package to address this whole issue, and the centre is likely to announce when. Nobody knows, because there had been talk going on for the last 1 month that a fiscal package which would address issues of wages of migrant workers, income support for migrant workers, income support to those in the MSME sector who have been rendered jobless or who have not been given wages since the lockdown. But nobody, I mean, as of now, I mean, we don't know when it's likely to be announced, though everybody is saying that it's
at some point soon. Parth Shah, will he address the unrest among student fraternity who are preparing for competitive exams? And in fact, I think overall education has taken a big hit because, you know, whether it's schools or colleges, classes cannot happen. Physical classes at least cannot happen. Examinations have been postponed. Entrance exams have been postponed. So, is the PM at all going to talk about students? Because
PM, I don't think would, I mean, go so micro into it. The broader nature of his address would be on the roadmap of the centre as we go ahead beyond May 17. What kind of relaxation would we see, and what kind of caution citizens need to adhere to as we go forward. Because on the issue of education suffering, I mean, the government has already announced, CBSE in fact will be conducting examinations for class 10th and class 12th in July. The government has come up with a schedule for that, and they are also working on a strategy to slowly reopen educational institutions, though it's not likely to happen anytime soon, but the roadmap is being prepared. So the Prime Minister is not likely to, I mean, specifically address students.
Well, perhaps he can do that in his Mann Ki Baat, which is going to be due on the last Sunday of this month, because often in the past he has spoken to students either on Teachers' Day and other occasions, and also through his radio show. There's a question from Divyanshu Sharma. Is it possible that in red zones the measures will be more strict as the doubling rate has increased and many instances of flouting the lockdown have come to light? And will e-commerce be allowed in all zones? So these are two separate questions. One is those which are designated as red zones after the 17th of May, whether the centre does that or whether the states do it. Will the guidelines remain the same as they are now?
No, the centre is likely, our sources tell us, that centre is likely to dilute the guidelines. What they are planning to do is restrict movement in containment zones. So in containment zones, no economic activities would be allowed, and containment zone would be areas where there are high number of cases. Places like cities like Mumbai, cities like Ahmedabad, they could see a very stringent lockdown, continuation of a very stringent lockdown. But beyond those specific areas, the government is going to give far more relaxation. And in fact, orange and green zones are the one where more economic activities would be allowed, more public transport would be allowed, even e-commerce activities would be allowed, because right now e-commerce activity is also restricted to only essential services. Public transport, of course, has been allowed
to a certain extent in orange and green zone.
But as we go forward, more mass public transport services would open. The government might soon announce resumption of air services also, even metro rail for that matter, because the metro has been, I mean, metro rail has, they have been running the system to check how to cope with the situation post May 17. So even metro services could see restoration after May 17.
Right. Vardhan Sharma wants to know, what is PM Modi's COVID-19 approval rating? Now, how do we gauge that? Is there any way to gauge that? I think too early.
It's too early, but the Prime Minister has been saying that how the way India has handled the COVID situation has come in for a lot of appreciation from other countries, because if you compare it with India's position with Europe or US, the number of infection has also, I mean, is not as high.
It's far more contained.
Yeah, it's far more contained, and more importantly, we have been able to, I mean, keep the fatality rate very low.
Right.
So that's one area where other countries have, praised the way the government has handled the situation.
Right. Yogesh Parikh, is PM going to talk about the preparation for monsoon, especially because it's a big factor in many parts of India?
PM is not likely to again,
dwell upon smaller,
smaller issues,
more micro issues, as you mentioned.
Yeah, it would be more macro and touching on the bigger, broader guidelines, the broader roadmap for the country.
Right. Syed Ayub, will the wages go up or down after economic activity starts as labours start migrating to their native places?
As economic activities go up, wages will eventually go up.
Right. Also, when there is shortage of labour, because a lot of labour would still be back home, wages would have to go up to make up for that. So
yeah. But now, right now, one of the most crucial thing that both the government and state government need to talk and figure out is the issue of migrant workers.
Right.
I mean, how do you deal with it? For instance, Bihar is expecting some 30 lakh migrant workers to return. Jharkhand is expecting some 3 to 4 lakh migrant workers to return, and they have been, they have taken up the issue with the center that, how to provide livelihood to these large number of workers who have returned and who are not likely to go back anytime soon, despite the fact that, states from where they have returned are promising incentives to migrant workers to come back and join work. In fact, last week, Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal made an appeal to the migrant workers not to leave the city because, it's affecting business and industries there. And he promised that the migrant workers would be well looked after.
Right. Parminder Singh wants to know, what about courts and tribunals? Will they open up?
Right now, most of the hearings in the courts are happening through video conferencing.
Right.
But some level of easing out, we could see some level of easing out after May 17.
Okay. Arjun Parmeswaran, the British PM surprised us all with a very clear and precise exit plan. Could we see something of that sort in India? So can PM Modi surprise us today with what he says?
With Prime Minister Modi, we never know.
We're always second guessing.
Yeah, we never know. I mean, something completely out of the blue could come up. But see, in India, you can't have a one-size-fits-all kind of a strategy because it's a huge country of 1.3 billion people. So it has to be, different plans have to be worked out for different areas.
Right.
For instance, in yesterday's meeting with the Prime Minister, Bihar CM spoke about how with all these migrant workers returning, many of them have been found infected and the number of red zones in the state will go up.
Right.
Again, I mean, in state like Kerala, for instance, the number of active cases have been very low in the last, few weeks.
Right.
So you can't compare both the states and you can't have the same plan for both, for the entire country.
Right.
So,
I'll take two last questions, Moushumi, because we are running out of time. There is one from Soham Parekh on whether an economic package is expected to be announced today. Well, that seems unlikely.
PM won't, may hint at it, but is not likely to
announce the specifics of a
package today.
Right.
He would leave it to the Finance Minister, Nirmala Sitharaman, to
do that.
To do
Which is what has happened all this while in the
earlier also when the government announced the 1.7 lakh crore fiscal package, it was Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman who did that.
Anshula Menon, what will be the procedure for checking for COVID considering domestic travel is opening up? So this is a concern I think that many would have, that it's all right to open passenger trains and it's all right to perhaps even restart metros, but how do you check the spread of the virus once you do that?
See, there is no one foolproof way to check, but what different agencies, different organizations are doing, and the government is also pushing the organization to do, is increase testing. For instance, now that they have opened passenger train services, they are making it mandatory that asymptomatic, some people who have some symptoms, fever symptoms, won't be allowed to board the train. Then you will have to go through the thermal screening when you enter the railway station, and if you have a high temperature, you won't be allowed to even enter the railway station. So the same thing would be applicable when air services
Right.
are
Resume.
restored or metro services are restored. So every organization at their level will have to ensure that all these protocols, virus protocols, are followed. Also, when the train, once the train starts, inside the train, passengers are the railways will have to ensure that passengers are following social
Physical
distancing
distancing, right.
norms, and they also put in place systems where passengers don't have to sit close
In close proximity to
in
each
close
other.
proximity to each other. So respective organizations will have to adhere to the virus protocols that the government has come up with.
Right. Well, one has to learn to live with the virus, as they say, and the government will have to ensure all protocols are followed, both the center and the state government. As individuals, we have to do our bit by being cautious, by practicing physical distancing and not venturing out when not needed. Thank you so much for watching Government Matters, for sending in your questions. Do keep subscribing to our YouTube channel.